Hi everyone, I'm John C. Morley, the host of the JMOR Tech Talk Show and Inspirations for Your Life. Hey guys, it is John C. Morley here, serial entrepreneur. Welcome to the JMOR Tech Talk Show. Today is April 18th. It's Friday. Yes, this is Good Friday for those of you like myself that are following and are Roman Catholic or Christian. This is basically a very important day of the Triduum, and Easter Sunday is coming up. So, what is Good Friday? Well, Good Friday is a day that Christians basically they fast, and it commemorates the crucifixion and death of our Lord that we believe, and it's observed annually on the Friday before Easter. It's a day of sorrow, penance, and fasting for many of us Christians, with many attending church services to meditate on the suffering of Christ. So that is what today is. So anyway, I just thought I would let you guys know that it's pretty important to me. I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. I invite you right now to head over to your kitchen, get yourself something to drink. Maybe it's hot, maybe it's cold. Feel free to do that and come on back. This is the JMOR Tech Talk Show, and today's title is Tariffs, Tech, and Turmoil: How Trade Wars Impact Us All. Series 4, Show 16. In this must-hear episode today, the JMOR Tech Talk Show will be unveiling a bold new proposal from Donald Trump, the 145% tariff on Chinese imports, and how this could send shockwaves through the tech world, from Apple's production lines to your next iPhone. We break down the tech trade and tensions in 14 vital points that you're not going to want to miss. If you're thinking about buying a new device or investing in tech, this episode is your roadmap to what's coming down the pipeline. All right, everyone, be sure to check out BelieveMeAchieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. And first up, ladies and gentlemen, is something I think everyone has a question about, and that is Mr. Donald Trump. So Trump actually proposes a 145% tariff on Chinese imports. Donald Trump's proposed 145% tariff on Chinese imports is sending tremors through the global economy. This isn't your everyday policy tweak. It's an aggressive stance that could disrupt global trade relationships for the tech industry, which depends heavily on Chinese manufacturing. Such a tariff would massively inflate the cost of doing business. It could push companies to shift their entire logistics operations, which is neither quick nor cheap. But what I want to tell you is that, we come up with these topics, obviously, before the week starts, which is usually like on that Friday or Saturday, and then they get recorded on Sunday night, early Monday into reels, and then they get pushed out 2 a day, 1 in the morning and 1 at night. So when we think about this, there, like I said, is a lot going on with things that are happening with Mr. Donald Trump. So I think that's something that a lot of people are very, very concerned about. What's actually going on? Like, what is he doing? And I think that's a big concern for a lot of people. When we think about the tariffs and things like that. So the potential impact of this is really great, but in a bad way. So when he had started this, Trump had said there would be tariffs in place, and that 145%, first it was lower, then it got even higher, and then up to 145% on everything from China. Okay, so now he suddenly has decided to backpedal and say that there are tariffs except on electronic items like iPhones, computers, laptops, right? Any type of phone or mobile device. So the point is, what did he really do? I mean, that's the big question, right? Apple was having a fit because of what's going on, because they'd have to pass these costs on to buyers, with some estimates suggesting the iPhone could rise as much as $800. They were saying around 2,400 plus tax. However, some analysts believe Apple could absorb some of the cost increases, while others expect global prices to rise due to the tariff effect on the dollar. The good news for right now is Trump has removed the tech tariffs from China to the U.S., because this was causing a big problem. And so they are now exempt. Smartphones and computers are now exempt from Trump's latest tariff that just happened a few days ago. And the question is why? I think it's because a lot of big tech firms like Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft are complaining back to the administration about, what's going on. Are they even going to be around? And this is something, ladies and gentlemen, that could really cripple the economy. So Trump had to respond, and he did respond. The question is he going to keep the tariffs off forever? I don't know. But the big thing is we should be building stuff right here in the United States of America. We have that, chip foundry that was built in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know why we're not getting more out of that. I'm not really sure, but we'll have to keep you posted on, what's going on. But, with most iPhones being produced in China, Apple's dependence on China is no secret. Over 90% of iPhones are assembled there, primarily by manufacturing giant Foxconn. China offers Apple's vast infrastructure, low labor costs, and streaming logistics. But that also makes Apple extremely vulnerable. A tariff of this scale could make the cost of each iPhone jump significantly. Thankfully, Trump has rescinded the tariffs. The question is, will Trump ever put the tech tariffs back? I don't know. I don't think he wants any heat from this, but in the same breath, it's actually hurting our own economy. So he's paused the tariffs. I don't think he's stopped them indefinitely, but he's paused them for the moment, just to give people a breath of air. We've got to start manufacturing the things that we get from overseas. I mean, it's the bottom line. I mean, why are we jerking around with all this stuff, guys? I mean, we could be doing this right here, and we're not. We're being too reliant on other countries, especially China, right? And Meta faces a pivotal antitrust trial that just started earlier this week, April 14th. Meta was preparing to defend itself in a landmark antitrust trial that started on April 14th, as the U.S. federal government is challenging its acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp. The case is bringing forward during, of course, the Trump administration as part of a broader effort to rein in the power of major technology companies, and accuses Meta of using its market dominance to eliminate competition and secure a monopoly in the social media space. At the center of the trial is the question of whether Meta's billion-dollar purchase of these platforms harmed innovation and consumer choice. A ruling against Meta could result in a forced divestiture of its key platforms and set a powerful legal precedent example for future antitrust enforcement in tech sectors for other companies. Now, the question is, what's really going on, right? And Meta has not been innocent, as well as other companies have not been innocent. And so I think this is a big concern for a lot of people. Okay. But we're going to have to see, what happens. And so, the Meta trial is something that a lot of people think is a great idea. But with it now starting to begin, this is just the beginning. And if you look at some of the pictures from, let's say, Mark, let's say he does not look like a happy camper. I mean, he looks really the worst I've ever seen him. So the Federal Trade Commission's blockbuster antitrust case against Meta kicked off this past Monday in a courtroom in Washington, D.C., And it's the culmination of nearly 6 years of investigation into whether social media giant, Facebook, Meta, whatever you want to call them these days, broke competition laws in acquiring Instagram and WhatsApp. At stake is the future of Meta's 1.4, let me make sure you're hearing this, guys, 1.4 trillion advertising business and the prospect of having to spin off its huge popular service into separate companies. A corporate breakup, the likes of which has not been seen since AT&T's telephone monopoly that was forced to split apart more than 40 years ago. Lawyers for the FTC and Meta will continue to deliver their different statements with the district judge, James Boseberg, in a trial that is going to stretch 7 to 8 weeks. So we're going to keep you abreast of what's going on there. The FTC argues that when Meta acquired Instagram in 2012 and the WhatsApp 2 years later, that it was part of a strategic plan to eliminate competition and maintain monopoly power over the social media market. The government contends that a buy or bury strategy propelled Meta's acquisitions, leading Meta to gobble up competitors. What remedy does the FTC want? Well, the government argues that the only way to restore competition to the social media marketplace is for Meta to be forced to unwind its purchase of both Instagram and WhatsApp. The government says divesting those apps will allow smaller social media companies to compete for consumers and ad dollars and loosen Meta's grip on the industry. Um, Meta is countering that it's being punished for being an innovative and aggressive tech company. I don't think it's about them being punished. I think it's that they knew what they were doing, just like Google knew what they were doing. And we all know Google's getting in a lot of trouble, right? What would it mean for users of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp if Meta was forced to break up? Well, the FTC says that it would mean more robust competition among social media startups and therefore better quality services for everyone. Government lawyers are arguing that Meta's services have degraded in the quality in part because of its dominant position in the marketplace. I know that when we used to advertise with Meta in the beginning, I felt that my dollar went far. The more that we went on, I just started seeing that I'm spending money, actually more money, and I'm getting less or no return. So that is a big concern for me, and I'm sure for a lot of small and other big business owners that have a problem with that. So we're definitely going to keep an eye on what's going on and let you know so you can stay afloat with that. And Mr. Musk, yes, he gains allies. This is something that's incredible. Ex-employees back a lawsuit against OpenAI shakeup. A dozen former OpenAI employees have filed a legal brief supporting Mr. Elon Musk's lawsuit to block the company's restructuring, arguing that removing its nonprofits controls would violate OpenAI's founding mission to prioritize humanity over profit. These ex-staffers who held key technical and leadership roles emphasized that the nonprofit model was crucial to the firm's integrity, recruitment, and original purpose. Musk, who co-founded OpenAI in 2015, but later decided to exit, claims the company has strayed from its humanitarian roots. While OpenAI contends the structural shift is necessary to raise funds, and will not compromise its mission as a $40 billion funding round looms. The battle over the AI giant's future intensifies with a jury trial set for next year. See, everyone here is starting to do things, and it's all about money. I mean, I'm not going to say that money is bad, but I'm going to tell you that you have to do things for the right reasons. If you do things solely for money and you don't care about other people, or what I like to say is doing things for the greater good of all concerned, you are going to get burnt. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week or next month, or maybe not this year or next year, maybe not even this decade, but trust me, you will get burnt. Google was operating, I don't want to say under the table, but they were operating in a deceitful way for years. And it took the government a while to finally clamp down on them. And I'm glad that they did. And they're still watching them. Well, the Irish watchdog is probing X over potential AI data violations. What's this all about? Ireland's Data Protection Commission has launched a formal investigation into X, formerly known as, quote unquote, Twitter, and offering its use of personal data from European Union users to train its artificial intelligence system, Grok. As the European Union lead regulator for X, Ireland's DPC has the authority to impose fines of up to 4% of the global revenue under the GDPR. The probe of basically is there to focus on whether publicly accessible posts from European Union and EEA users were improperly processed for AI training. Now, this follows prior legal action in which X agreed to cease AI training with user data until consent mechanisms were addressed. The investigation adds to more tensions between tech giants like X owner Elon Musk and European Union regulators, who Musk and former president, before Trump had been basically brought into office, was criticized before he was brought in office. So I think a lot's happening with the social market, and it's happening because of money, and people are doing things that are not ethical. I'll give you a perfect example. Many years ago, I'm going to say probably we're in business now over 31 years coming up this year. I have to tell you that about maybe 10 years after we got started, I met up with somebody who was in a local business and was boasting about how big he was. He had a big storefront and he had a few people. And apparently, we all buy from similar distributors, but I guess I had a contact that he didn't have. And he wanted to buy, at the time, I think like 200 copies of Microsoft. At the time, I think it was Microsoft Windows 98. Now, that gives you a framework of how far that came back. So, when did Windows 98 come out? It was a while ago. It came out June 25th, 1998. I think he came to me right around within 6 months of that, probably like around maybe like around December or January. So maybe like around maybe January 1st of 1999. And I was talking to him, and he wanted to buy 250 copies of this particular operating system. Now, in order to buy an operating system back then, you needed to register and be an OEM, a VAR, value added reseller, so you could have the rights to do that. And what Microsoft used to do is you would get a whole OEM box package. It was a whole thing, and it was really a good value for us. Well, what happens now is that people can just go buy the licenses and it's not so good of a deal. But on operating systems, you really don't make any money. Back then, we made a little more money because Microsoft understood that we should make some money. Well, now they decided that we're not going to really make much. If we make $5, we're lucky. So anyway, when Windows 98 came out, and this is probably a good question, how much, let me ask you, how much do you think Windows 98 costed when it first came out? Does anybody know? Well, when it first hit the shelves, typically costed around, was in the $100 range. Okay. And Microsoft Windows, everything they do is always going to be about profits, right? But when we think about this, this really opened some eyes. Okay. The original full installation was $209. Okay. If you're doing the upgrade, it was $109. If you, for example, were doing some kind of bundle upgrade, it was $94.99. Okay. And so what happened was OEMs were able to charge we charged somewhere between $50 and $79. And we might have been making back then maybe $10 or $15, maybe. So anyway, Windows 98 was not an easy product to get. So he reached out to me kind of in the mid-life cycle of it, or almost when it was over. Maybe it was a year or 2 years after. And so let's say that normally you would buy Windows 98, okay, on the street for a full license. Let's say it was like around $150. Let's just say that, okay? So 150 times 250, that's 37,500. So he said, "Well, can you do better?" And I said, "Yes, I can get it down for you." He said, "Yeah, if you can get under 100, I'll buy it from you." Okay. So I got on the price at $99.99. times 250. Now, obviously, I was making some money on it doing the deal. So it's $24,997.50. So he kept saying, well, gee, can you do a little better? Finally, he kept pushing me so much that there wasn't even a $2 or $3 profit. And so this was the problem. He was trying to play games. And a lot of people do this. They try to play games. They get the software. Like, a lot of people that probably sell Word or Excel or any other software package or even other ones. And they're not software as a service. They are just the software. And you put the key in. A lot of times these keys, they would, let's say, buy a whole bunch of them. They'd email them to people and they'd activate it multiple times. Now, back then, you could activate software maybe at least 5, 10 times. They would figure some people would make a mistake. Well, now you're lucky you can operate and activate software like twice. After the first time you try to activate, it says, this is a legitimate, yada, yada. So people were doing things that were unethical. And when I saw what he was trying to do, I said, you know what, I got to get away from this character because he was trying to get the licenses. He wanted me to give him the numbers, right? Before he even paid me. And I'm like, I don't think that's happening. That ain't happening. So there are a lot of people that do things deceptively. And that brings it to our next point. Online deception campaigns are evolving. A sophisticated network of fake social media accounts, which initially surged to support former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte during his arrest, has now extended and broadened into an influence to the upcoming Philippine election. According to research by tech firm and Cybra, a third of the accounts discussing Duterte's arrest on the platform X were fake, operating in a deliberate, organized manner. These fake accounts, which blend seamlessly into online conversations, have played a crucial role in shaping public discourse, both in the context of Duterte's legal battles and the upcoming election. The firm warns that the manipulation of online discourse is not only pervasive but increasingly sophisticated, generating millions of views and affecting election discussions ahead of a pivotal vote between President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Duterte camp. So I think it's really important what's going on with some of the social media. And so I want to tell you about something else that was dishonest. So probably around 5 years after we started our business, there was somebody I got referred to, and we were doing business with them for maybe 2 or 3 years. It was a tow yard. I'm not going to give you the name because that's unprofessional. And it was a tow yard in New Jersey. And well, what happened was there was time for a new server. At that time, Novell was very popular. Novell, NetWare, you probably remember, NetWare 311, 312, came on floppy disks. And then the next version I remember we got was NetWare. It was like NetWare 4, NetWare 5, NetWare 6. And the big thing back then was putting in Colorado tape backups or Tamberg data. I'm not sure if even Tamberg data is still around, but they were the big name back then. I think they actually got bought out, if I'm not mistaken. Tamberg data. They focused on storage products, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they probably somebody bought out Tamberg data. I'm not sure who, but they were a very, very good product. Oh, it was Overland Storage. That's who it was. Overland Storage bought them out. And so Overland Storage uh, basically did a little bit, let's say, of a different model, right? That happened in 2004. So Overland Storage for data, and they got away from it basically called Overland Tanberg. So they have some products like some they call it RDX removable disk solutions. So they're still doing some of that, right, for certain clients that require that. They have that. Then they have service and solutions. But Tamberg was a great company, and they made a high quality drive. It was not cheap, but they made a high quality product. Their headquarters are out of Germany, United Kingdom, and they have one in France. So I think when we can understand these things, like what happened with this guy, he wanted me to build a server for him. Now, we got quotes and we sent it out to him, and he got quotes from some other people. And, you know, the price was off by a little bit. So my price was X dollars and their price was X dollars. And I remember him saying, well, John, you're off a little bit. I said, okay. He says, I'll show you their quote. I said, okay. We were off $1,000. It was like $999. I said, well, the reason we're off $1,000 is that's the license fee to network for Novell. He says, well, he's not charging me for that. I said, I can't do that. He said, well, I'll give you $50 if you can just make us disappear. I said, I don't operate like that. I said, first of all, that's illegal. It's immoral. It's not ethical. And the fact that he was insinuating that he wanted me to work like that, I immediately stopped doing any work for him immediately. Whether he wasn't going with me anyway, but I immediately stopped working with him as soon as I knew that he wasn't based on integrity backbone. I think that's a problem for a lot of people. They do things just because of the money. And the cybersecurity industry remains quiet amid Mr. President Trump's criticism of Sentinel-1. The cybersecurity industry has remained largely quiet after President Donald Trump targeted Sentinel-1, a prominent cybersecurity firm, over its hiring of former Trump appointee Chris Krebs. Krebs was a former director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, and had publicly refuted Trump's false claims about the 2020 election, leading to his firing by Trump. In response, Trump ordered the cancellation of Sentinel-1 executives' security clearance, but the industry refrained from voicing support for Krebs or the company. Despite reaching out to numerous cybersecurity organizations, Reuters and many others received single supportive comments from the Cyber Threat Alliance, which criticized the White House's actions as politically motivated. The situation highlights the industry's reluctance to speak out, as many fear potential retaliation. Given the high-profile nature of Trump's attack on Krebs, you can obviously see, what was going on. But when Trump doesn't like something, it's like he's got to let everybody know. And Trump definitely hates Sentinel-1. And it's all political. Nothing to do with the technology itself. Okay. It's sad that things have to get that way and be that, let's say, ruthless. I know my family and relatives have been in politics, and it's dirty in politics, unfortunately. They do things that I'm not going to repeat here. Like, they take people's signs down. All kinds of stuff goes on. And we're back talking about the TikTok deal. So is the TikTok deal still on the table? That's the question. Because they don't have much time, right? Is that TikTok deal still on the table? Everybody wants to know, is the TikTok deal still on the table? Trump likes TikTok. He says it's still on the table. This is what he says, okay? And I don't know if I believe him or not. President Trump stated that the presidential deal to spin off TikTok assets is still on the table, and I quote, despite being put on hold recently, Trump defended the deal, claiming it involves reputable U.S. investors while highlighting the need for negotiation with China. But of course, he would disclose who they are. The deal would, of course, create a U.S.-based company reducing Chinese ownership of TikTok. A deadline for TikTok to divest in U.S. assets is set for June 19, 2025. Which it has been extended to there since the original date in January. And with some senators challenging the legality of this delay, the primary obstacle is to finalize the deal with the Chinese government's approval, which could also hinge on resolving ongoing trade disputes. And we know those keep happening, right? And here's another interesting one. I think you guys are going to find this a little funny. AI dolls, the growing trend and its concerns. The AI doll trend, where people create miniature versions of themselves using generative AI tools like ChatGPT. It has gained so much popularity on social media. Users are uploading their photos and providing specific instructions for the AI to generate doll-like images, often personalized with names and accessories. However, concerns about this trend are emerging more and more, particularly regarding the environmental impact of AI's energy and consumption and the use of potentially copyrighted data. Critics are arguing that AI-driven content generation process has significantly increased the environmental costs, with data centers consuming vast amounts of energy. Additionally, the trend raises privacy and cultural concerns as AI is starting to slowly blend personal and commercial imagery without proper responsibility or accountability. Despite the fun and novelty concept, experts are urging caution in how we engage with these technologies. So you might be saying, John, how much is it? It's a good question to make an AI doll of me. Well, you can make what they call like an AI Barbie doll. But again, if you're a male, it wouldn't be Barbie, maybe a Ken doll, right? So the question is who, and you probably wonder is who is selling AI dolls that will make basically of yourself? And so there are a few companies out there. They are asking for a large number of these. Um, and so, what you might be asking me, what does it take to make an AI doll of yourself? Well, first thing is you need an AI powered art maker that generates images from plain text. You could probably use a picture. You can use different things like ChatGPT, etc. Then how do you get an action figure? Well, Hero Builders is the first and only company globally to make you a custom personalized action filter. Yes, Hero Builders. So now the next question you're probably asking is, how much does it cost? So that's a very, very great question. So basically, you fill out a form. Um, you can text them. They don't want to get phone calls. If you want a light skinned male, it's $325. A light skinned female, 325, a dark skinned male, 325, a dark skinned female, 325. So I'm happy that they're staying at least standard with the prices. I was waiting for them to give me a different price. So here's how it works according to them. After you place your order, you basically they ask you to send a one-sided view image and a one front view image. It's essential to try to give corresponding images such as a smiling or a serious one so they can get that. Once that's scheduled, they start sculpting the face of your custom action figure. One of their master sculptors uses the images you provided and hand sculpts your head in detail. I don't know if I believe that. Once the sculptor is supposedly happy with the sculpture of the head and face, the Hero Builders will email you photos of the sculpture for your approval. You can either approve or suggest changes to the sculpture. The changes must be realistic for the size of the sculpture. If edits to sculpture can be made, they will make them. Suppose dramatic changes from your original image are requested. Well, for instance, if the original photo shows you smiling and we created the sculpture that way, and you want the face changed to an angry look or a hairstyle change, well, there'll be a $150 charge per each dramatic change. So if you want an angry change, it's $150. If you want to change the hair, it's another $150. Everything is $100. For instance, if you send one email request and have two changes, add glasses and change your hair, well, that's $300. So you can easily get up to $1,500 to make different changes. Change the hair, change the eyebrows, change the smile, change the ears, change the nose, right? Change the eyes, right? Change the what else? Maybe change the neck, right? Change the shoulders, change the feet, change the chest, right? So once you approve the sculpture is then baked to a rock hard consistency. Once the sculpture is removed from the oven, a mold making expert creates a rubber mold for your action figure head. Preparing the rubber mold for casting. Once the action figure mold is ready, the head is casted and heated to 170 degrees using their proprietary material. They don't share that. Your personalized action figure head is removed from the oven. Now that the head is cooled, it's meticulously hand painted and dried to match your image. Wow. So your custom action figure is then shipped. They hand assemble your action figure, which is boxed in their world famous black Hero Builders window box. And shipping is free using USPS priority. Shipping is not free, however, if you order in the month of December. If your action figure needs to be at a location on an exact specific date and they need to use FedEx delivery, of course, that's an extra charge. They can use FedEx fully insured if you instruct, but you'll be charged for that service. So if you're ordering extreme custom action figures and are getting a custom outfit, they do not offer approvals of custom outfits. So your outfit will be on par with the outfits shown in the sample images only. Wow, guys, that's kind of amazing. The question is, why do you want an action? Why do you want an action figure? Right? I don't know. They even have, get this, they even have domains that are for sale right on their site. So you can pay anywhere from $50,000. I think their cheapest one is $1,000. And then once you have that, well, then they're hoping you're going to sell a lot more action figures. So they ask you different questions, things like that. How do you become a toy maker? Becoming a toy maker is easy, they claim. Just like the toy makers at the Hero Builders, you too can become one. So this a fad? I think it's not going to last forever. I think it has some interesting caveats, but I don't know if I'm 100% on board with it. I don't know if I like it. So will Trump's tariff raise iPhone prices ever? The potential impact of President Trump's tariff could raise the phones later, but again, like we're saying, he's not planning on doing it now. And Meta has accused, basically, of this very interesting thing right now. Actually, they're being accused, I should say, of using Jerry Adams' book to train AI. This is pretty serious. Meta's facing backlash for allegedly using pirated books, including those written for former Sinn Féin leader Jerry Adams, to train its artificial intelligence model, Llama. And the company is accused of accessing millions of books and research papers through the illegal site Library Genesis, LibGen. Authors, including Adams, have expressed outrage, with some, like historian Michael Taylor and academic professor Monica McWilliams, finding their works on LibGen database. The matter is currently being investigated, as you probably would have knew, and authors have called for stronger protection of intellectual property rights. Meta defends its actions, claiming its use of such data is legally justified, while authors continue to advocate for fair compensation and recognition of their work. Of course they're going to say it's justified. What are they going to do? Tell you it's not and then have you go against them? We all know that these companies, whether we're talking Google, whether we're talking Amazon, I don't care who we're talking about, they've all done things that have been, let's say, very gray area. Okay? And the OpenAI countersues Elon Musk over alleged harassment and a sham takeover. OpenAI has countersued Elon Musk, accusing him of harassment and seeking to prevent any further actions that could harm the company. This comes after Musk made an unsolicited $97.4 billion takeover bid earlier this year, which OpenAI rejected. The lawsuit stems from Musk's ongoing efforts to prevent OpenAI from transitioning to a for-profit model, which the company argues is essential to secure funding and compete in the AI sector. OpenAI claims that Musk's actions, including public attacks, legal demands, and failed takeover attempts, are part of a broader strategy to harm the company for its personal benefit. The two parties are set to begin a jury trial next spring. So, all right, this sounds interesting, doesn't it? But the thing is this, if a company was built as a think tank initiative, that's like why it was built, and now you suddenly try to turn it into a for-profit, like, that's completely wrong, guys. I mean, that is just completely wrong. I don't know whose side you're on, regardless. That is just completely wrong. If you've got a think tank, you need to be using it as a think tank, and the money you raise goes back and there is no profit, okay, after all the stuff is paid out. That's how a not for profit basically works. And the techs are getting a pass. So Trump spares the electronics from the China tariffs, as we said. The US President Donald Trump has granted a pass on the tariff for the exemptions for smartphones, computers, and other key electronics largely imported from China, easing the burden and the pressures on tech giants like Apple, Dell, and many others. This decision, which includes retroactive exclusions for 20 plus product categories, such as semiconductors and laptops, comes amid a soaring set of tariffs that recently reached 125%. And then we went all the way up, ladies and gentlemen. As you remember, not too long ago, they skyrocketed all the way up to, what was it, 145%? I mean, that's nuts. And while the move provides relief to consumers and tech firms concerned about inflation and supply chain disruption, Trump's 20% fentanyl related tariffs on all Chinese goods remain intact. Analysts see the exemptions as a bullish sign for the tech sector, while Trump's administration hints at new national security investigations that may bring fresh tariffs, even against Beijing, as they're pushing back with their own 125% and now 145% tariff. So this is crazy, guys. But I think Trump's just trying to get some more money, and I don't have a problem with that. But I think we can't do something just because. That's really the reason. We can't do something just because. We have to have a really solid reason. And if you use chatbot or any of the other chat systems, chatbot privacy is becoming an issue. Protecting your data in the age of AI, millions of people now rely on AI chatbots like ChatGPT and Claude and AI Writer and others to help with everything from drafting emails to planning vacations. But concerns are growing over what happens to the data users share with them. The Wall Street Journal's chatbot Confidential explores key privacy issues such as who owns the input and the output data, how is it stored, and whether the responses can be trusted. As generative AI becomes more integrated into daily life, understanding how to safeguard personal information when using these tools is more important than ever before. So you might be asking me, John, how do we safeguard our personal info when using Chat GPT or something of a similar? Well, to safeguard personal information, avoid sharing sensitive data like names, addresses, financial information, phone numbers, credit cards. You can use the incognito mode to prevent chat history storage and opt out of data sharing features in the settings. There's some more things you can do, like don't reveal, as I said, personal details, nothing personal. Keep your health and your financial data completely out of there. Be mindful of what you type. Again, temporary chat. Some platforms offer temporary chat that also prevents data storage. You can disable data collection and training. Most platforms allow you to disable data collection or opt out of using your data for training the model. You can toggle off certain features that allow ChatGPT to record your inputs or use your data to improve the model. You can use strong passwords, enable multi-factor authentication, and log out of all devices. But the question is this enough? Because if you did it one place, and let's say somebody else was using ChatGPT to improve their workflow, then your data could still be getting in. So I think this is almost as serious as a HIPAA issue. I think we almost need to have like a HIPAA issue, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. We need to have something like that for ChatGPT. That's my feeling. But we're gonna have to see what happens, guys. We're definitely gonna have to see what happens there. And what is the CHIPS Act, and why does Trump want to change it? Well, Donald Trump is targeting the Chips and Services Act. It's a $52 billion initiative signed by President Joe Biden in 2022 to boost U.S. semiconductor manufacturing and reduce the dependence on Asia as part of its broader efforts to reverse its predecessor's policies and shift more manufacturing back to the United States of America, the bipartisan law. It was designed to strengthen national security and economic resilience by investing in domestic chip production, but it's now in the crosshairs as Trump pushes for a new approach to trade and industrial policy. I just see this getting to be really messy. I don't know about you. And about this little tidbit, hackers were have found to be being spied on 100 U.S. banks. Hackers secretly accessed the emails of approximately 103 U.S. bank regulators at the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, OCC, for over a year, intercepting more than 150,000 messages and exposing highly sensitive financial information. The breach, which began in June of 2023, was discovered in early 2025, 2 years later. Wow. After Microsoft alerted the OCC to unusual network activity, investigators found that the attackers infiltrated the system by compromising an administrator's account, raising serious concerns about cybersecurity vulnerabilities in key federal financial oversight agencies. I got to tell you, I never liked Microsoft security. When I still don't trust it today. When I was using Novell, which is not around anymore, but that operating system was amazing. And Microsoft copied a lot of what they did. Well, they tried to. When you have to do things like set up permissions. In Microsoft, you have to set up a lot of other rules. In Novell, you could set up permissions within permissions. You could set up a directory. You could go back. You do all these different things. In Microsoft, they have a lot of weird ways to do that because they're Microsoft. And I know that the interesting thing about this whole thing is that, government agencies are using Microsoft. And they're not only using two-factor. Hopefully that's changing. We know the big problem that happened with the Slack not too long ago with Disney and a few other companies, and they're all complaining and crying about the security. But it's their own fault for not enabling two-factor. Now, you might say, John, Slack could have forced people to enable two-factor. Yeah, they could have. Can we blame Slack for that? No. They're giving people an option if they want to enable it. But they probably could have some nag screens that say, hey, you haven't enabled two-factor. I mean, there's some systems that just require it. I want to tell you a real funny story. I was doing work for a bank. I won't tell you which bank. It was a bank in New Jersey, pretty large bank, one of their branches. And I was checking out their WAN, their wire, their wide area network connection coming in from this time. I think it was Optimum coming into their modem and then into their router. Well, as I was checking different things around, I found there were so many vulnerabilities. I brought it up to them and I said, hey, you got this vulnerability, you got this. They're like, oh, yeah, you should let our chief of security know. I let them know. And to this day, again, I'm not telling you which bank, they still haven't fixed these issues. This is a major publicly traded bank. Gets better. Doing work for another large bank for a very long time. A gentleman that I've known for a very long time brought us on to help him with some things. And he decided that he was going to leave and start his own company, which was great. He probably sensed something was wrong. So we're doing work for this company that's a majorly publicly traded bank and investing, really an investment firm. And apparently the connection started to go south once this person left. And what they're doing now is they're hiring people to come in at lower rates. They don't care about their qualifications. They just care that it's under the wire. I was bidding for a project the other day, and the lady was so gung-ho to get our team on the project. And I said, we don't play games. We don't BS. This is the way it's going to go. We're going to give you our quote. She said, oh, yeah, that's fine. And when can you get there? And we're going to schedule everything. And I said, do you still use your schedule? She said, oh, no, we don't use it anymore. By you just confirming verbal with me, that's enough. Well, she calls me back and she tells me we can't use your firm. And I said, why not? She says, well, your rate's too high. I said, you've got a negotiated rate. I said, our rate right now It's like 3 times that price or 2.5 times that price. So what they're trying to do is get people in at the lowest possible labor rate, people that may not be that skilled. And then you know what they do? They get those people in and they figure that they don't need the best. They don't need the best. And I think that's a big problem for a lot of people when we say they don't need the best, because how do you deal with something? I mean, how do you even equate to something like that? So this bank that were doing work for I'm gonna say for a very long time, is now working with a firm that doesn't really care because they're trying to get the cheapest people in there. That's crazy, right? Really, really crazy. But people are doing it. Okay, people are definitely doing this. And the sad part, ladies and gentlemen, is that they think they're doing the right thing. They think they're doing the right thing. So, as this semistic tariff proposal looms and could come back, the tech landscape is bracing for dramatic transformations, which could come any day. Consumers, business owners, investors, and tech giants alike are entering a new era of uncertainty where trade policies could dictate everything from your next upgrade costs to the global supply chains, next pivot. This is really important. And in this episode, we peeled back the layers of policy and price, and knowing that a lot of it's about politics and giving you the clarity to make some smart tech decisions. Because right now, I don't think President Trump knows. I don't think our administration knows if we're going to come back with tariffs. I don't think they know. Whether you're a diehard Apple fan or simply just curious about the ripple effects of global trade, today we broke it down for you with insight and urgency, from rising production costs to global inflation triggers. We gave it all to you and we spelled it out. And we didn't give it to you with a political shift. I don't care whether you're a Republican side, a Democrat side, or independent. The bottom line is you got to do what's right for the country, regardless of what party you are. Okay. And I think that becomes a major, major issue for a lot of people. Why? Because it affects everything. It affects everything. And the reason it affects everything is everything is kind of tied together, right? Everything has a codependence, right? A codependence. Trump's proposed 145% tariff on Chinese imports could reshape the global tech, but now he decided to drop that because the companies were complaining to him. With up to 90% of iPhones assembled in China, this impact wouldn't be subtle. So you could see why he had to stop this. But why isn't there a timer on there like they did with other things that were forcing companies in the US that were using biotech companies outside? They gave them, I forget what it was, 2 or 3 years to get off of them. He's not doing anything like that, just like he's not doing squat about TikTok. And I don't care whether you like the president or you don't like the president. I go for what they're doing. I'm not here for politics. I'm not here for a personal relationship. I'm here for who is the best person that has the right tactics for our country. At the same time, the ripple effects could extend well beyond phones. But we're lucky he's given us a pass. The question you're probably asking is, will Trump reinstate the tech tariffs? And I don't know. I don't know. But I know it caused a lot of disruption when there were issues. I can definitely tell you that. At the same time, more people were getting fearful. I had a client of mine that was supplying something that came from all parts of the world, including China. And he was telling me, he said, John, he says, if something was in the water yesterday, and the day I was told this was last week, on the 9th, then there was no tariff. But if it was in the water on the 10th or later, then there would be a tariff. And it disrupted so many things with quotes and people reneging things. So I think this is why Trump had to do this, because this was becoming a real anarchy. I mean, I'm not just talking about something that was an inconvenience. I'm talking about something that had the power, ladies and gentlemen, to literally cripple our world. I mean, tell me that that's not important to you. Tell me that tariffs wouldn't have affected you. I don't care how much money you make. Do you want to pay an extra 30 or 40% for a car? I mean, hypothetically, let's just say, I don't know, let's say that you bought a, let's say you bought a Porsche that's 125,000, okay? And now they tack on 40% more, $50,000, $175,000, $50,000 increase. That's nuts. And you and I all know that you can't just push something through and not increase something else. It's not going to work. It's not going to give. So you have to figure somewhere where you're going to come back with these costs. I mean, that's just our bottom line. And I think a lot of people don't like the fact that, we're not making things in the United States. I'm not happy with it either. And the question I want to know is, when will we be getting, let's say, tech chips from Arizona? I mean, when? Um, TSMC's first chip manufacturing plant started mass production 2024, and they announced plans for 2 more plants in Arizona. Okay. But the question I have is, are we getting supplies, okay, from TSMC in Arizona? I mean, are we really getting supplies yet? I don't know. It employs more than 3,000 people on 1,100 acres, and it's been in volume production. So again, are we getting product from TSMC's fab in Arizona now? I don't think we're getting them yet. AMD is set to produce its chip, the CPU chip there in Arizona. Recently, it was stated, and its key processor chips would soon be made at TSMC's. Um, the question is, what chips will be made at TSMC Arizona? What chips? The plant is supposed to be making the new AMD Ryzen 9000 and the NVIDIA Blackwell chips. That's what they're saying. They're currently producing chips on a 4-nanometer N4 process, but they're aiming, ladies and gentlemen, at a 3-nanometer and a 2-nanometer. That's like mind-boggling. We were only doing 6 or 7 about a year or so ago. And following this, TSMC's earnings are definitely going to jump, right? I mean, when they can get down to a 1.4 nanometer or a 1.0 nanometer, that's pretty powerful. NVIDIA has brought some of its chip production stateside, and NVIDIA announced that it's starting to produce its Blackwell AI GPUs there. But we're still not getting a major push. And I think it's going to take some time for people to understand. But the big thing I don't like is that factory is, well, it's owned by the United States, okay? We own the factory. But we do not own the contents, what's in it. We do not own the business. No, we don't. That's pretty scary, guys. Pretty scary. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. Do check out BelieveMeAchieve.com, and I'll catch you guys real soon on another episode. Have yourself a great rest of your weekend. I'll see you next week.